So again, everyone, welcome to Sophisticated Data Searching and Selection with Ideate Query and Ideate Explorer. My name is Richard Taylor with Ideate Software, and I appreciate you joining me today for this short 1/2 hour webinar. So Ideate Software is all about simplifying your Revit data challenges. We have 5 add-on solutions to Revit. As you see there on the screen, Ideate BIM Link, Ideate Explorer, Ideate Sticky, Ideate Apps, and Ideate Style Manager. And today we're going to be looking at Ideate Explorer and specifically the tool within Ideate Explorer called Ideate Query. So before we begin, I just want to point out that we have outstanding support and reputation on all of our software solutions. I'm going to be referencing several times throughout the presentation. We have online help. There are educational videos. With our help, you'll actually see that there are examples of, for instance, using query in different disciplines, structure, MEP, architecture, even generalized. So I'll point out where those are. So we do spend a lot of time on our help files, both in product help as well as online help. We are supporting Revit 2020 and the prior 3 releases. So that's, as you see there, 2017 through 2020. And of course, when Revit 2021 comes out, we're assuming probably around March or April timeframe, we'll just shift that and then we'll have 21 back through 2018. Now we do have versions that go back further. So if you are on sort of legacy versions, we do have that available. We're just not updating those particular Ideate software releases for those legacy, older legacy Revit versions. And we've been an Autodesk software app developer since 1985. And actually, just last year, our Ideate BIM Link and our Ideate Explorer had their 10-year anniversary. So we've been doing this for quite a long time. So let's talk about Ideate Explorer. It's one of the 5 applications. And Ideate Explorer is a number of things. So we're going to be talking about Ideate Query, but I just sort of wanted to introduce the application. Ideate Explorer is a model browser. And what I mean by that is it's showing every element and every instance of every element within the Revit model. And it's showing you so much more than the project browser. And you're going to see that there's just so many more elements and types of elements and things that are going to be shown. So basically, if it's in the model, it's going to appear in the Ideate Explorer interface. Now, in addition to that sort of model browser aspect, we also have a warnings manager. The warnings manager we're not going to talk about today, but I just wanted to point out that we do have a number of videos. We've done a number of webinars that specifically focus on this particular aspect of Ideate Explorer. So I'll just sort of point you in that direction. If you go to our website under videos, you go to Ideate Explorer and you can see the videos that are specific to the warnings manager. But what we're here today is to talk about Ideate Query. It is powerful selection refinement. So I want to start by giving you an overview of Ideate Explorer, how we can sort by different methods such as the category, the family, and type. We can sort by level or work set. But then there are times where you need a more granular search. You need to be able to search on a particular property or parameter. And that's what Ideate Query is all about. So what I thought I'd do is just give you a quick high-level overview of Ideate Explorer. So I'm going to switch over here to Revit. I've got a number of different windows open here. So this is Revit 2020. Actually, yesterday I just downloaded the hotfix that Autodesk did for 2020.2, I believe. So there is a new version for those of you that are using 2020 and have updated. Autodesk does have a new hotfix because there were some issues with families. So anyway, I digress. So we have our normal menu here. All of the Ideate software tools are under, interestingly enough, a tab called Ideate Software. You'll see I have all the tools installed. We're going to go to Ideate Explorer. So when Ideate Explorer first initializes, it's going to look at all of the elements. Now I have this set. You can set it for the active view, current selection, which we'll see in a moment. But basically the entire project, you're looking at every element. Otherwise, like right now it's 36,000 elements. If I switch over here to the active view, now I've got 4,000. And just for fun, if I wanted to come over here and just say select a bunch of things over in the canvas, and then maybe switch that to current selection, now I've selected 1,056. So you can see that I can select different elements based on this display. So for the most part, I'm going to go back to the entire project and we're going to look at all elements. And again, as I mentioned, we can sort by, category, family, and type. I'll show you another method of searching. For instance, let's say we want to look at elements based on their level. And you'll see here we've got our different levels of this project: top of footing, first floor, bearing. So let's just go to the top of footing, and I can see that I've got the level marker itself, but I've got a door on the top of footing, which doesn't seem to be correct. So what I can do is double click, and it's going to zoom into that area where the door is, but it hasn't selected it yet. But when I tick this selection, it does select it, as you see there. Now in this model, I have transparency turned on so I can easily see that door, but there are many times where you're not going to be able to see that very easily. So with Ideate Explorer, it's a non-modal application, meaning that you can work with any Revit command while Ideate Explorer is open. So in this case, what I'm going to do is just come over here and select my selection box, right? And so that gives me a nice sort of preview of this. I can come over here and in the properties palette, I can see that the level is set to top of footing. I'm going to switch that over here to the first floor and apply. So I'm making that change. You can actually see over here in Ideate Explorer, it's updating, it's dynamic. So now that top of footing, right, does not have a door. It only has the level marker, and the door has actually been moved over to where it's supposed to be, on the first floor. So now when I'm done with that, I'll just come over here and say, let's go back to that view and say, let's go and turn off the section box so we get the full extent. And let's go ahead and fit that. So that's just kind of a little preview of how you would work to explore different aspects. So again, the entire project, switching to category here, looking at all elements. And then we also have a navigate, where you're going to see me, I can navigate to legends, schedules, sheets, and views. And then our warnings tab, which is showing your current warnings, which again, I'm not going to talk about too much today, but just to show you where that is. Okay, let's switch back over here. And let's give a basic introduction to Ideate Query. So you saw that I was able to very quickly sort of categorize elements based on different sort criteria. But now I want to dig a little bit deeper, right? So let's switch back over here to Revit. Let's go over and just select our Ideate Query. Now you'll notice, hey, there are no elements selected. One of the things with Ideate Query is it has to have elements, some kind of element or at least a single element or a category selected. So if there's nothing selected, you're going to get this warning. So just so you know that. And I'm going to choose two very different categories. CAD imports, and that's another thing that, like CAD imports or let's say linked files. That's not going to show in the project browser. So again, this is an example of many things that we're showing in addition to the project browser. And then I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to go down to, let's say, doors. So two very different things, right? So when I do that and I go to query, you're going to see that I have, doors here and imports. And so what it does is when I have multiple things, it's going to say multi-category. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, but basically it's giving me, the built-in parameters, and it's giving me some shared parameters, but it's not giving me everything. It's not giving me all sort of the specific parameters associated with doors that Ideate builds into the toolbox here. So lots of times you'll see that I tend to select just the category that I'm working with. And you'll see why in just a moment here. So in this case, I'm going to do something called wrapping, right? Which is for the doors, right? So if I type in wrap, think that's if I come down here, wrapping it ends. And obviously you can imagine that there's no, in imports, it's not applicable. So I just wanted to show you this thing that says not applicable. Now you may say, hey, the count is 187, but the imports is 173. Well, that means that there's probably some doors that aren't applicable as well. So what we can do is come over here, clear the selection, or clear the search, I should say, and I'm going to go now to family. I'm going to search for family. Now the key here is I don't want to just select family, because if I do, it'll wipe out this other wrapping. If I want to add a particular selection, it's the control select. So what I would do is do a control and then select family. And I can do that up to 3 times. And so now I see the original, the wrapping, the family, and the count. Now, I don't like the order that this is in. So another tip here is I can just take the column and hold on it with a mouse and then just move it over to the left. So I can rearrange these. I can also decide that, I want to organize. If I click on family, it's going to organize the family based on alphabet or alphabetized. So you see it starts with W, or if I want to go the other direction, it starts with B. Or I may want to organize it based on, again, things that aren't applicable. So you can see here that blank for the family, which was the import, is 173. So that matches our number over here that we selected. And there were actually several curtain walls that did not have a wrapping associated with it because that's not applicable for that particular family and type. So again, this kind of drills down into specifics. So that's just kind of an overview of, again, moving these things around on the columns, being able to sort very easily, and then also being able to select them as well. So let's switch back over here. All right, so I talked about like when you select multiple, like you saw what I did there was I selected, CAD imports and doors, which obviously, aren't similar. So when more than one data category is selected, the properties will show multi-category as I showed you, but it will be limited to the project, the shared parameters, the system parameters. And so if you want to see more parameters that are specific to that particular category, it's better to select just that category, right? And so what you have available are the built-in parameters from Revit, project-based parameters, family-based parameters, custom ideate properties. And you're going to see I've got a couple examples of this. Like for instance, we can find if a dimension has been overridden or if a family is in place, certain elevation characteristics. Those are things that we've built in that are available through Revit, but they're just not in the properties palette, or they're not very easily accessible, I should say, within the properties palette. And then we also have key schedule properties available as well. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is go through some examples here of looking at Ideate Query in sort of real-world situations in both sort of general, but also showing architecture, MEP, and structure. So, we're going to go find overridden dimensions. I'll show you an example of finding in-place families, show revisions on sheet. We'll select doors that are in fire-rated walls, and then we'll review elevation of electrical devices or electrical fixtures, and then we'll be able to select rebar by host. So let's switch back over here to our lovely file. So the first one is I want to select overridden dimensions. So this is where I would say, since I'm, if I selected dimensions and let's say floors, I wouldn't get that override because that's a sort of a custom Ideate property if I'm selecting multiple ones. So that's why I just want to do the dimensions. So when I do that, I select 1,321. I'm going to come over here to the query. My category is shown there. And then I'm going to come over here and type in the word override. And there's value override. So now it's going to scan through all 1,321 dimensions and tell me if there is a value override. For many of them, they might be radial dimensions where it's not possible to have a value override. There's over 1,000 that are blank, but there's actually one here that is or has been overridden. So if I select on that, it's going to build that selection criteria for me. And here is where I can double click and I can go right to that view and it will open up the best view. So there's that 48-inch max. If I double click, you can see that the dimension has been overridden with this 48-inch max. Maybe because of characteristics or particular standards, I don't want to have any overridden text, so I want to use the actual value. So I was able just to search, thousands of my dimensions to find the one that was overridden, quickly be able to remove that overridden value. And now I know that all of those, let's say, meet my standards for this particular project that I'm working with. There are no overridden dimensions. Okay, so then I wanted to talk about, casework and in-place families. So before I do that, though, we're going to use another part of Ideate Explorer, and that's to navigate. I'm going to select on the navigate. We're going to go down here to views, and we're going to go to views that are on sheet, and we're going to do floor plan views. And I can expand this so you can see it a little bit more. And to open up a floor plan, all you do is double click, and that will open up that particular view. Okay, so then we'll switch back over here to Explore, right? And I'm going to switch it from current selection to entire project. And you see that down below, there's always this filter that says how many I've selected. So right now, there's nothing selected. I want to search for in-place casework families. So I'm going to select on casework. And you can see that in this view, there's a number of items that are casework families. So again, now I'm going to go to Query. And this is, again, another Ideate special sort of property that we've uncovered for your use. So if I type in place, there is this is in place. So when I select on that, basically it's true or false. False means it's a loadable component family. True means it's a in-place family. So if I select true and then say select, the current it looks at the current selection and it's showing me just those casework items that have their in-place families. And this is important to understand because these in-place families, every time you place them, it's going to take up basically space within the model. So that if you copy 5 different in-place families, it's literally copied 5 times, as opposed to if it's a component family or a loaded family, when you copy it 5 times, it's actually just pointing to the original, so it's sort of saving space within the model. So these are, in-place families can be very useful, but if you have a lot of things like bookshelves and I see projection screens, that's not really a very good use of an in-place family. Those should be loadable component families. An in-place family is good if it's, specific for the project. For instance, if maybe it is a shelf that is specific for a room that has the characteristics of that room only or something, where it's a one-off situation. But in this case where I've used it multiple times, again, I might want to think about replacing these with loadable component families. All right, so let's look at, let's go back to our navigate here again. And we're going to clear our selection and we're going to look at sheets. So we're going to say all sheets, right, in both in the sheet list and the placeholder sheets. And we're going to go over here to query. And another kind of custom parameter that we've exposed both with Ideate Explorer as well as BIMLink is the ability to look at the revision sequences. So if I type in SEQ for the sequences, you can see that I've got in this project 5 sequences. 2 were in-house that have already been basically delivered. And so in this case, if I say, I want to look at sequence 5, I can see that, there's 3 that are using that and 93 that don't. But I don't know which ones, right? So here's another example where I might want to say sheet, right? And I want sheet name, and I would hit the control key, and now I'm adding the sheet name to so I can see here, the sheet name, and then whether it's using that sequence. And in most of them, they're false. And in fact, I can organize this so I can put the ones that are true at the top. So now what I do is I come down here to, I really want let's say the enlarged plans here, right? and I want to select that one. And so I'll come over here and again double click to open up that particular sheet, right? And if I zoom in, there it has that, on the title block, it has that sequence. And maybe, again, for my purposes, I need to look at the revisions on sheet, and I need to say, well, you know what, this also should have sequence number 4 or revision number 4 associated with it. So I was able to quickly search for that, find the sheet, and then add the next revision sequence to that. So again, nice use of Ideate Query. So again, just to kind of check in here, we did overridden dimensions, we did our in-place families, we found the revisions on sheets. Next, we're going to go through the fire-rated walls, and then review elevation devices and select rebar host. So now, let's come over here and we're going to switch over to our entire project, and we're going to look at doors. So we're going to select doors, and we're going to go to query. And oops, notice there I have sheets, which is not, I had a sheet that was selected. So in fact, the easiest way for me to remove that actually is just to cancel this and go over here and just say none, and then go to doors again and go back to query. And now I just have the door category. And so now I want to go here and type in fire. And we're going to look at, let's say, I'm going to do fire rating. And then I also want to add the host wall type fire rating. So I'm going to do, again, a control select. So it shows me that, again, I have the host wall, if I expand this a little bit more. But it's not very clear because I don't have the family and type. So what I'm going to do is clear my search, and I'll come over here to family. And you can see that I can do the family name. I'll do that. And I'll add that. And now, let's say this is not exactly, let's expand this, what I want, in the sense I want the family name over here. And then I want to search, let's say, by the 1 hour, and then also, let's just do the right there, 1 hour. And notice that I have, in this particular case, there are a number of these, and I can expand this, as you see, as I move the dialog around. So I have this particular door. It's a 1 hour door. Now there are seven of them that don't have the correct, there's a 1 hour door, but the wall hasn't been set yet. And then there are others where that 1 hour is set. So what I can do is actually select those 7 as an example and say select, and then go to those individual ones. Let's say just, pick on that and decide, well, okay, where is that door? Oh, well, that door is in that location. So maybe I now select on the wall and realize that, okay, that wall should have a 1 hour fire rating as well. So we'll come down here to the fire rating, and we'll make sure that that is 1 hour, because that needs to be set. So again, I can check those types of things and make sure that my data is, is working for both my doors and my walls. So let's switch. We've been doing sort of architectural examples and some general examples. Let's switch over to MEP. So we're going to come over here to my view. I've got another project in the background. We're going to switch windows and switch over to my MEP. And notice when I do that, just to show you, it's switching from the project, which was my conference center. It always shows me the name in Ideate Explorer. So now it says 2020 MEP Advanced Project, right? And if I look at my entire project, it's going to show me more, obviously, more MEP focused things like air terminals and fixtures and so forth. So let's come down here to electrical fixtures. There's 424 of those. We'll select that, and then we'll go over here to query. And let's say I want to look at elevation. So elevation from level, we'll select on that. And again, I've got the elevation from level, which is very nice to review. I see one here that is minus 6,000, actually, because it's at the top level and it's being referenced down. I might want to change that. But to really give me some information here, I sort of need the family. again, or family and type. I have all this information. So in this case, maybe I just want the family. So I'm going to do a control there and then move that over. And again, I can review why this is minus 6,000 millimeters. Why did they reference it? Maybe that should be referenced from a different level. But I wanted to show you if you wanted to make a mass change, like in this particular case, this receptacle, right? And I want to show you another example here is I'm going to do both of these. We'll move this over. So there's a duplex receptacle and a quadruplex receptacle, right? Actually, both of these duplex. Why don't we just do those? Because that shows you the 138 and the 282. So I'm going to select that. So notice that I have those 420 items selected, both the GFI or GFCI and the standard. Now, what I might want to do in this particular case, since it says current selection, I can come over here and I can say save the selection set, which is a really nice thing to do, and be able to save that as a name. And then I have the ability to go and specify what I want that name to be. There we are. So we're going to call this, duplex fixtures. All right. And the reason I just show you that is we might want to come back to that particular selection later on, so we don't have to redo the query as an example. But in this case, I've got 414 of these, and so I can select, I can here say I don't want to select any of those. I just want to do these 414 as an example. And if I select all of those, and notice that I have elevation from level, they're actually there's different items here. So what I can do is specify that I want all of these to be at 500, and I can apply. So because I selected, or I have those all in my properties palette, I'm able to make that change very easily. So now, if I were to just keep those all 414, I can still go to query, right? I'm just showing those 414. And if I do elevation from level, you can see that their value, all of them has been set to 500. So that's just another quick way to check. But then if I wanted to go back here and say load selection set, I think it's just there we are. There's that duplicate fixtures. Say OK. And then I've got more. So not just my 414. I believe I've got, actually it probably was the whole, that whole set. So let's just say, I think it was, there we are. It just took a while for the standard and the GFCI. And my last example here, I know we're at about the top of the hour here. I'm going to come over here and switch my views to the structure. And I just wanted to show you that you could search for rebar as another example. So in this case, here's the entire project. We're going to come down here to structural rebar. I've got 11 items here. And we're going to go to query. And for instance, I could say the host, so the host category as an example. Where are these? Well, they're in floor, they're in structural framing. And again, I might want to do the family. So we'll do the family name. I'll do a control. And so now I can see that there is a rebar bar in the 4 of them on the floor and 7 of them under structural framing. And again, I can go more detailed about this or decide that I want to modify those in some particular way. All right, so we went through several of those examples, but I want to give you a tip that many of these are available on our website as well. And I already went through this with selecting more than one property of Revit, being able to drag the column headers to rearrange them, select the header to resort. I didn't show you the export results to Excel, and that's pretty simple. So basically, if I did have, like back over here in structural, let's just say I'll do my rebar again, and I'll do the query, and I'll do the host as an example. And I'll do the host category, and then I'll add my family name, control. And let's say for that, I just wanted a quick export to Excel. So I'm going to say export selected, right? Oh, I don't have anything selected. That would make sense. So export selected, and you'll see that there's the results. I'm going to replace the one that's there. And then I would want to go out to my directory and say that there's that Ideate Query results, double click. And what's nice about this is it will show me the element ID, the host category, and the family name. So it has that information that I specified. So again, it's nice the fact that you can go and have that be sent out directly to Excel. So as I said, there's many more examples on our website. If you go to ideatesoftware.com and then do the Ideate Explorer help and follow the Ideate Query, there is a node for Ideate Query examples where we've organized this by general, by architectural, structural, and MEP. So again, I just wanted to reiterate that we have, multiple versions on 2017 through 2020. You can download a 14-day trial of Ideate Explorer at our website as well, and I would encourage you to do that on any one of those 4 Revit versions.
Hey, Richard. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Appreciate it. Great job, Richard. Generally speaking, pretty quiet on the question side of things. We did get one question from somebody just asking if you could save some of the query results and bring them back up later on. And at the moment, no. However, we do have this logged as a feature request. So it's kind of like almost like saving a selection set, but it's not the selection of elements themselves, but rather the query,
actual query, yeah.
The criteria themselves. So that's come up before. So we have that logged, and I'm going to add this question once again to our system. Otherwise, for the most part, I think pretty quiet. We did have another one. If does Ideate Explorer, when you do the query, does it show the selection set as a model or only to Ideate? And as I understand this question here, basically what we're implying is when you do your selections in query, we don't save that criteria. However, once you hit OK to query and refine your selection of elements based on that criteria, you could save those elements as part of a selection set.
Correct.
So, yep. Other than that, pretty quiet.
All right, great.
Which means you did a great job.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you for bearing with me throughout the presentation. So thank you. If you do have any additional questions or comments, please fill out the survey, and you can always contact us. My contact information is richard.taylor@ideatesoftware.com, and I'm always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn as well. And my information on LinkedIn is, if you just search Richard Taylor Revit, I think I'm the only one that comes up. So again, thank you much for your time and attention, and I leave you to have a great day.